Prototyping is a crucial phase of rolling out any digital product, even though it may be painstaking. What if we told you that there is a faster way to do it? Jorge Ferreiro joins us today in talking about React and Next to save time on prototyping. Jorge is a full stack software engineer focusing on Eventbrite, an American-based event management and ticketing site. Before Eventbrite, Jorge worked as a backend software development engineer at Amazon, the global e-commerce company. We hope that you find this workshop useful. Please join me in welcoming Jorge. Jorge, the floor is yours.
Hello. Let me see. Thanks so much for the introduction. Really appreciate that. Can anybody tell me in the chat if you can hear me fine? Let me see. Is the audio working great? You can hear me fine. Let me see. Well, hey, hi everybody. It seems like it's working great. Okay. Let me start sharing my screen. So first of all, hi everybody. I'm Jorge. Right now, living in Spain. And I'm very excited to show you all my findings and very introduction into React with Next.js, which is a framework that I've been using for the past 3 months in a new product. I've been using others before, such as Gatsby, and I've been working with React for almost 2.5 years already. Oh, yes, I can see you, Ariane, Livia. Welcome, everybody. Loud and clear. I love that. I love that. So I can see people, Viola, DRC, Sherize, and Farhan, Livia. So welcome, everybody. I hope you're having a great time. And today I'm very excited because actually I want to start doing a new experiment with all of you. So I regularly do live streams where, I'm coding different applications, different products. And today I want to do the same in Garuda Hacks. So I want to start prototyping a very small application so all of you can start playing with React, because my main goal here is basically sharing all my findings when I attended hackathons, things that work out really well, things that don't work out really well, in order to fast prototyping and make sure that you can deliver your product on time. So that's going to be my goal today. Let me see why I cannot. Oh, there we go. There we go. Yeah. So as I said, I'm Jorge. Hi, everybody. I'm basically a software developer for Eventbrite, previously at Amazon. And I consider myself a product maker, which is like a new term for basically somebody who bootstrap a product business ideas and makes them happen with limited resources. So right now, I'm basically bootstrapping a new product called streamradiox.com, which is fully built with React, with hooks, with Next.js, and also I founded Developers in Dev, Devs in Dev, which is a show on YouTube where we interview top leaders in the tech industry. Whoa! So some of you may already know me a little bit through my website, because the amazing guys from Garuda Hacks posted these guides that I create about how to win a hackathon. So the disclaimer here, or my overall opinion, is that you come to a hackathon to have fun. You come to a hackathon to make something cool. You come to a hackathon to learn. And whether you will win or not, for sure you can maximize your options, but that shouldn't be your main focus. Your main focus should be to connect with people that in the long term you can build products together, companies, etc., and connect with other companies in case you want to get an internship or whatever. So that's kind of like my disclaimer. I see Kevin C is asking us, can I use Next.js fully as a REST API server? We will talk about it later, so wait for that. But I couldn't use, you can use that because Next.js has an option to actually offer you different business logic that is only run on the server. But but we will talk about it later. But thanks for asking. And by the way, I read you all. I have the chat on my right side, so I will keep monitoring that as well. InstaSoup. Thank you. So yeah, and then if you have any questions about React, Next.js, Gatsby, Firebase, or any product questions such as how to build an MVP, prioritization, just let me know. This is the index for the talk. A bit of context. So I want to like put on the comments, guys, how many of you are actually familiarized with React, has worked with React, and if you're familiarized with JavaScript. I want to see it. So just put a comment like me, or no, I don't, so I can see that. But yeah, the goal of this talk is going from a very small idea to launching that into a production environment, so everybody can see that. So for the context, basically React is a UI library for building user interface. So what does it mean? Well, basically React will offer you different APIs, different methodologies to create interfaces. The official documentation says that it's a library, but some people consider React itself a framework. And the main difference is that library tends to be something that you can reuse, some business logic that you can reuse, and a framework offers you like all the options to create a new application, a new product. So it's more advanced and has more options. I don't really care. Like I can call it framework, I can call it UI library. So it's up to you. Who is using React? So, let me see. Me. Some knowledge. No, I don't. Basics. Okay, cool. For those of you who doesn't know React, I hope that through this presentation, you will learn the basics about like how to start writing a very small application. And for sure, you will have the slides. You will have the source code available on my GitHub, so you can download and start using that and keep adding your hacks from there. So don't worry. So who is using React? A lot of companies. So Twitter, a couple of years ago, they rebuilt the whole application with React. So it was a very interesting experiment. Facebook, Instagram, Tinder, all of them are using React in more or less, like more or less in the sense that some of them has all the applications in React, some of them has certain features or functionalities, but there are very big players using React. So I know that some of you will be like, I use Vue, or I've heard Vue is cool. I'm not gonna start that war here. Like I'm not gonna start that talking at this presentation, but for sure you can use Vue, you can use React. In my opinion, React right now is the #1 player, but that doesn't mean that Vue is not great. Like I think Vue is great. So just for the disclaimer. What is Next.js? Actually, does anybody in the chat, what is the best framework in your opinion? So Andy asked me a question like, what is the best JavaScript framework in your opinion? I'm sorry, I'm a newcomer in the digital world. Andy, the things that I've learned in my whole career, I've been programming for since I'm very, very young, but I've changed my opinions over the time. So at the beginning, I was like, when I started over a new technology and I was very excited, I always was like, this is the best technology ever, and nothing else is better than this technology. Over the time, what I've learned and I would realize is that technologies doesn't matter that much. Like it's more important about making sure that you are building the right product for your audience, like for your users, or the right product for a hackathon, rather than being super obsessed about this technology because it's cool and it's new, or this other technology because it's amazing. Like I think don't put so much effort over the frameworks, over the technologies. Put more effort over the result, over the outcome. And the outcome, in my opinion, we are not like programmers or software developers because we love to solve complex problems. I mean, we can enjoy those, but we are software developers because we bring value to our companies. We bring value to our clients, to our customers. So it's more important to making sure that you are building the right product rather than which technology you pick. And for this weekend over the hackathon, this idea and this tip applies as well. Don't try to go crazy building a super amazing big application, super ambitious application. Try to simplify and go to the main pain point that you want to try to solve. Answering your question, like more in depth now, like with this context. So I've been using Gatsby, I've been using Next.js. In the past, I used Meteor. All of them has pros and cons. So it depends really what's your use case and how are you planning to use those. In my opinion, or for this particular case, for Stream Radiox, my new product, I started to work with Gatsby, which is great. With Gatsby, like you will see a lot of blog posts on the internet that uses Gatsby, and it's super powerful. But for me, it wasn't working fine, especially because in my application, I rely a lot on dynamic data, like data that is changing quite often. And while Gatsby offered options for doing so, Next.js, in my opinion, does a better job, like has a better APIs and on how can you specify a static HTML or static pages versus dynamic pages. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a try to Next.js, and I couldn't be more happy. But it really depends. Like sometimes you don't even need a framework. Like sometimes you can go with vanilla JavaScript or you can go with React and do a very small prototype. So it depends really. By my opinion and from my experience, Next.js is working really great for me right now. And it's actually, if you see Google Trends comparing to Gatsby and other frameworks, it's actually one of the most, like the number one framework comparing to other ones. And it's raising like a lot. So in my opinion, Next.js as of now is great. So an example of a product that I've been building with Next.js is streamradiox.com. So it's basically, like a music application with royalty-free music. So we built this application because there were a lot of streamers who were complaining about like, oh, I play music from Rihanna and I got a copyright claim over my YouTube video or over my Twitch channel. And we were like, all right, so let's build a product to make you feel safe and to engage more with your audience. And as I said, this is built fully in Next.js. Now the question is, but Jorge, why do you really need a framework? Because you can go with vanilla JavaScript, you can go with jQuery. Like I built a very complex application with jQuery, and I wouldn't recommend you to do so again. So in my opinion, the need for a framework like Next.js or Gatsby are 3 points. One is time. So there are a lot of great minds that has been working really hard to make things easy. The other one is efficiency. Since you don't need to waste time to maintain a framework or to create certain things, you will save money and save time. And convenience. From my experience, if you go with vanilla JavaScript or jQuery for complex applications, you will need to write a lot of code, such as like keeping the state of your application. How can you transition from one page to the other? The routing. There are a lot of pieces that a framework gives you. Like you just download the framework and you will have that ready for use. So in my opinion, like the old Jorge, like 5 years ago, the old Jorge will be like, oh no, I mean, like frameworks are great, but I want to learn the basics. I learned the core. And so I want to build everything from scratch. And like that's great for learning purposes, but when you want a fast prototype and build a product, you need to be efficient. You don't like wasting time on things that doesn't bring value to your customers are a no answer. That's why, for example, hackathons are a great place to be like super focused on a very specific problem and try to don't waste time over setting up your environment, over choosing vanilla JavaScript that you will need to write a lot of things from scratch. So yeah, that's why I feel like frameworks are really, really important. We got a question from Signal Salt. Is Next.js a good framework for a website? I'm a newcomer. Thank you. Okay, so thanks for asking that question. I really love your engagement, guys. You are awesome, and I appreciate that. So my follow-up question to you would be, what type of websites are you planning to do? What type of application? Is it going to be a complex application with many pages, many views? You will need to keep the state a complex state. Will it be a very simple application, such as like a landing page? How does the application look like? And I think those are the questions that we all need to ask when we are picking up a new technology, or simply when we want to start something, because it's not like a silver bullet. Like, it's not like a gun that will work for every single situation. You will need to choose the technology based on your needs. So for example, if I would start a blog post today, probably I will use Gatsby, like, for sure, 100%. I think it's really great the way Gatsby works with a GraphQL. Is really great that, the way Gatsby translate Markdown into a queryable database. So that's amazing. It's amazing, like the efficiency and how fast things work with Gatsby when you have static HTML files. So for that use case, I would start using Gatsby. However, for example, you ask me, Jorge, I only need like a very dummy landing page, like literally like a hello world. This is my product, and with a couple of images. A good question to yourself, if you really need something complex or something more advanced, like a framework, I could be like, bro, just create an HTML and just throw the image, the pictures, the styles there. Um, so it depends really what do you want to accomplish and what is the product that you want to build. And I think we should always take that in the back of our minds. If you are building a complex React application, Next.js is a framework that will work really well, if that's your question. Now let's talk about Next.js features. So in my opinion, like, there are a couple of features for Next.js that are really amazing. So first of all, zero configuration. So frameworks makes your life super easy, and like, you don't really need to waste time configuring Webpack, configuring the build system. So that's something that Next.js gives you. And then there are other optimization things that happen behind the scenes, such as pre-rendering, server-side rendering. So all of these two concepts, which I will not dive deep on those in this talk, because you could literally have a talk about server-side rendering and pre-rendering. Those two things makes your life easier. Because basically, one of the problems that single pages application has, so you can imagine like Twitter, Gmail, all of those are single pages applications. The main problem that they have in terms of like performance is that, well, if you rely only on the client side, you may overload the CPU for that client. Another problem is that, well, sometimes you need SEO. So you want to position your application into Google and make everything like, SEO working and SEO ready. So one of the typical problems that you have with single pages application is that, since most of the times they rely on JavaScript to be able to show something, to display something, Google will be like, I don't know what to do with this. So at the end of the day, what Google really does is it goes to your website, it gets the page and reads the text and say, okay, so this is a blog post about how to win a hackathon. And Google reads your text and Google adds that into their database. That's how a search engine works. Simplification for sure. So things like server-side rendering or pre-rendering is actually making that process really easy, because Next.js will actually build the static HTML on the server. So anytime that Google will ask like, oh, give me your website, it will not return like an empty, like almost empty HTML. It will return the first initial page for that HTML. So that bootstrap things, and that's really important. So if you are new to this world, don't worry about these concepts, but that's something that will come eventually, especially if you have worked with server-side rendering before. And the last piece is the static exporting. So like anytime that you can, just export every single page of your application as a static, because that will boost up the loading speed and that boosts up the client experience a lot. So static exporting means that instead of just generate everything on the go, like generating the HTML on the go, it will create all the HTML in build time, which means, when you are pushing your changes into production. And lastly, Borsel. So Borsel or Borsel is actually the company that the guys from Next.js created, and allows you to do things like putting your code into production, and it's very similar to Heroku. If it's the first time that you attend to these kind of talks, don't worry. You will hear me talking too many times about production, production, production. Production is really what your customers will be able to see. So when you go to gmail.com, that's production, because you're accessing the user's website. But for sure, people at Google, they have multiple versions of the same web applications for testing and for like internal use. So Vercel or Vercel lets you put your Next.js application as well as other applications into production really, really easily. So we got a question from Ariam, which says, can share difference between Angular versus React? So again, like that's a very complex question to ask, in the sense that each of them has pros and cons. And, I don't want to like take more time of my presentation talking about it. I would say the main difference is basically kind of like the philosophy that is behind each of those frameworks, or libraries, and the way you work and deal with things like data binding. How do you update the state? What are the APIs, and kind of like the ideas behind each of each other. So this answer was very like light, but we can like just send me a DM after the talk and we can talk more about it. So don't worry. But for this talk, let's focus over React and Next.js. All right. So once we have this, but thanks for asking. Once we have this, let's talk about breaking down a UI. So something that is really important when you are thinking about web applications with React is thinking about components. And components are just like Legos. Have you played Legos? Like these building blocks that is red and yellow, and you can create more complex things. So components are exactly Lego pieces. So you create small pieces, and then for creating the whole application, you just make them together. You just fit them together. So that's what a component is really. And, like the more formal explanation of that, like the explanation that the guys from React gives about components are, like component lets you split the UI into independent, reusable pieces and think about each piece in isolation. So this is more like the philosophy behind a component, which is, making small pieces, small parts of your application. And that's pretty much it, basically. We will see examples of components, so don't worry if something is not clear. So I want to give you an example. I want to see in the chat, like, how many of you use Twitter? Just say me. Do you use Twitter? I use Twitter a lot. So I wanted to give an example over how to think or start thinking about components when we are, checking a website like Twitter. Because you can, like, the first time that you see a website like this, you could be like, but hold on, how can I create a web application out of this big monster? Like, how can I start working on that? So for me, something that I literally always apply when I'm learning, like when I was learning React and when I'm building product, is thinking about components. Like, this is the website or this is the design that I want to make. How can I start thinking about small pieces that I can create and that I can build? So in the case of Twitter, nice. So in the case of Twitter, like initially we only focus on the layout. You will see that Twitter has like these sections, right? So you have one section over the left part, which is the menu. You have another section here, which is the content. And you have another section here, which is the sidebar. So that's my first approach. I always start top button. And why this is important? Because if you don't do this exercise before starting to work on a new interface, you will be lost, or you simply will be like not super detailed on how to solve a specific problems. So once we have the top approach about how Twitter is structured or how I see Twitter, we can dive deep more. So we can even break it down the UI into smaller components. So here it's just not a menu, it's like a bunch of buttons that are next to each other. Here is not a content, is a bunch of a title, a place to write my tweet, and a list of tweets. Here, I don't see a sidebar, I see a search input field, and I see a trends for you panel. So as you can see, we started from the more top approach to the more deep approach. And we can even go farther and say, well, what is a tweet or what is a list of tweets? Well, it's just a combination of an image, a title, a handle, a text, and a couple of actions. So as you can see on the right side, if you see this part here, on the right side, it says header, content, actions, right? So I don't longer see these. I just think about this instead, which is how can I understand what a tweet is? Well, a tweet is a combination of all of these things. And you can go even farther and say it's just not an actions panel or an actions bar, it's a bunch of buttons that has some behavior. So as you can see, we started from this is Twitter into, okay, Twitter is divided into pieces. Okay, Twitter, each piece has children's, and we keep going farther, farther, and farther into the UI. So we got a question from Fair, which says functional components versus class components. So this is a more advanced topic, and I will answer you at the end of the talk. In my opinion, short answer to you. Later on, I will explain you more in detail. Functional component as much as you can, and if for some reason, and functional components with hooks, if for some reason, like you need some certain lifecycle methods, or you for whatever reason you need to use a class component, just go with the class component. By default, I always go with a functional component. Cleaner, easier, and using hooks, really awesome. Hope this answered your question. What is your preference, functional component or class components? I want to know. Okay, so let's start with some coding. We have 30 minutes left, 32 minutes left. So let's start with some coding. I'm going to drink some water for all of you. Oh, actually, having a chroma is amazing. Anyway, look at that. I don't have. Anyway. Okay, so what I wanted to an exercise with all of you right here is actually starting like creating a very small Twitter UI with Next.js and React. And honestly, my goal out of this walkthrough is making all of you and encouraging all of you to use this approach if you want to start like a product in the hackathon and you don't have any idea. On this note, I need to charge my laptop. Hold it 1 second. Okay. So we will follow a couple of steps, and let me see how can I do this, because I want to share my my MacBook Pro screen so you can see my code. Oh, actually, I'm on the call from StreamYard, so let me do this real quick. Okay, can you see? How can I stop screen? There we go. Okay, awesome. Guys, you can see my screen right now, right? Okay. So later on, I will share all the slides with you. So don't worry about it. The first thing that we are gonna do, and literally, this is gonna be like a step-by-step guide to build your first React application and put it into production. So, guys, this is gonna be amazing. And after this talk, you will literally be able to have an application in production. So let's go, guys. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to do live coding with all of you. So the first thing that we are gonna require, and by the way, if you don't have Yarn installed, please go ahead and install that. If you don't have Create installed, please go ahead and install that. So the first thing is we're just going to copy this command. And what this command is going to do, as you can see, I have a lot of processes running in my machine. So I'm just going to create a new tab. I'm just going to kill this, kill this, kill this. And I'm just going to zoom in so you guys can see this better. I hope you will enjoy this live coding session. I'm very excited. Should I use Yarn? It's up to you. You can either use Yarn or npm. Like nowadays doesn't. I mean, in the past, Yarn was like, oh wow, this is this new product that is amazing. Nowadays, npm created a lot of functionalities, so you can use both. I always like to use Yarn because they have the concept of Yarn workspaces that I'm very familiarized with. I wrote a blog post about it. But apart from that, you can use whoever you want. Okay, so let me go to my apps folder. Okay. Because I'm using a new mechanical keyboard, and sometimes when I switch back to my MacBook Pro keyboard, it's crazy. Okay, let's start. So Yarn create, and in this case, we can just call it Garuda. So, oh, what? Unexpected error. Please open. I'm unconnected to. Hold on. This is crazy. Create Garuda. No. Hold on. Okay, guys. I forgot the last piece. So the whole command is yarn create next app. I was like, never mind. Okay, so the name of our application is gonna be called Garuda. And now it's installing pretty much everything. Yeah, thanks for answering that question. Arian, yeah, npm can work. You can use both. Yep. So basically, the create next app. This is a command that the guys from Next.js created. So let me see if I can. In the meantime, while this is installing, I can go and show you. Like Facebook has their own create React app command. Next.js has their own create next app. So basically, all of these are scripts, are software that will install all the dependencies and will create a very basic product in your machine. So this product has been moved into Next.js project. So if you see the get starting guide, so let me see. We can go to Next.js. Let me see how is this going. Okay. If you go to the getting started line, they will say like you will basically need to type yarn create next app, and you will just have a new application up and running. Okay, so once this is finished, you will see that we successfully install all the dependencies, and they created like a basic application. And we will just simply need to type cd. So with the cd, basically, we will move to the new. Oops, what happened? Okay, we will go to the Garuda product, and then we just simply need to yarn dev. So the yarn dev command will basically make sure that you can start the local server so we can access the website in our machine. So we just copy this URL, localhost and the port 3000, and we just open a new browser tab, and we just introduce that URL. So with literally 2 commands, we have just created a new React+NEXT.js application, and we have started the web server. So it's loading, because probably it's building. Yeah, it's compiling all the assets. Yep, that's the command for. I'm just gonna. Oh, actually, I cannot. Type, but this is the command, guys. I'm just gonna put it again. Yarn create next/app or npm. So if you have npm, it will be npm create next app. All right. So once we have that, boom, we have a new React application running in our machine. So congratulations. Okay, so the exercise that we are going to do for the exercise, I want you guys also to install this library. It's a UI library called ANT Design. It's very similar to Bootstrap, Material Design, and guys, all of those libraries will do their job correctly. In my opinion, I started to use ANT Design for not this project, but for the previous project. And I'm very, very happy with that. So it has a lot of very nice components. The integration with React is amazing. And in my opinion, it's a really great player right now. According to their website, they call themselves the world's second largest library, the world's second most popular React UI framework. But I can tell you that I really love that. I don't really like too much the material design, just because I don't really like material design that much. So yeah, here you will have a lot of components, so you don't need to write them. And to be honest with you, anytime that I'm in a hackathon, if you can use a UI library that like this one, either Bootstrap, Material Design, ANT Design, or Tailwind CSS, just do it, because it will save you a lot of time. So you don't literally, like, if you can see here, you have a lot of things like a switcher, a rate, a slider, a time picker, a transfer, a select, an upload button, a batch, a comment, an avatar, a carousel, a card, a calendar. Like, you have a lot of things in the library. And what does it mean is that actually you will spend less time building components from scratch and investing more time into building the actual thing, which is your product. Okay, so I'm just gonna break the screen into 2 pieces. And basically what we are gonna do is the following. Oh, okay. Let me move that part to the right side so you can see it correctly. And probably I will zoom in a little bit. So the small exercise that we are going to do, and we have 20 minutes left, so we will, just touch the surface, is going to be creating a very basic Twitter layout and Twitter application. So we will have on the left side a menu. On the middle part, we will have a content, which a list of tweets. And on the right side, we will have a sidebar. So let's start doing so. So the first thing that we are going to focus on is, let me close these slides if I can. So the first part that we are going to focus is just creating the basic structure. So as you can see here, we have 3 columns: the menu, the content, and the sidebar. So let's do so. Let me open, by the way, with a code command. Let's open Visual Studio Code, and let's start our web server so we can see what we do. All right. So once we have installed the application, we will just directly go into the Pages folder. So you will have a couple of things here. The app is basically the layout. So you can have multiple layouts. You can have different shareable pieces of your application, and you will have all of them within the app. And then we have this file, which is called index.js, which contains the homepage. Let's open index.js, and I'm gonna resize this a little bit more. Awesome. So first things first, we are gonna literally delete all of these pieces from Next.js hello world example. And I'm just gonna replace that by a title, which is gonna be, hi there, Garuda, this amazing crazy hackathon that you are guys attending to. Okay, awesome. So once we have this hi there, Garuda, I'm gonna introduce you to the row and the column from A&T design. So basically, if you see this design, it's as simple as basically saying you have 3 columns, and that's it. How do we reflect that into the code? How do we tell we want 3 columns? Well, since we are using A&T design, we just simply need to say, oops, okay. We have the column, the row, and then we will have 3 columns right here. Don't worry about the red, because anytime that I save, it will automatically fix the style. There we go. Awesome. So once we have that, as you can see, like literally, this is super simple. It's just saying row and column. Once we have that, I'm just going to add some dummy data here. So it's going to be menu, content, and sidebar. Let's see if I can close other applications, because my computer is going super slow. And that's something that is not really cool. All right. Awesome. Okay, so once we have saved, you will see here that we have the 3 parts, menu, content, and sidebar, put in there. But it's not really nice, right? Because it's not the structure that we want to. So in order to fix that, A&T design has a grid system. And if it's the first time that you hear this, don't worry, that you can actually specify how much width size each of those columns will occupy. So you could, for example, say the menu will be 3 or 4, for example. I want the sidebar to be 6, and I want the content to be, for example, 14. And you may be like, but Jorge, how did you come up with those numbers? Like, what is that? So basically, the only trick or the only thing that you need to think of is that these 3 numbers needs to sum 24. Okay? So you just basically need to make sure that, however, like it doesn't matter in the way that you distribute the numbers, but each of them needs to occupy 24. Let me delete this part. As you can see, if now I go ahead and inspect, you will be like, Jorge, but I don't see like the design working. Like I still see one component next to each other. What's happening there? Well, what is happening is that actually we are correctly setting up the layout. However, we didn't add the CSS or the styles from A&T design. So we need to fix that problem right now. So as you can see, A&T design is telling me like, oh, this is a column with 4, 14, and 6. So that's working great, but I cannot see the design correctly. So how to fix that? Well, super easy. We go to A&T design and we go within the getting starting page. And you just simply need to scroll until you find this line here. So this line here is basically telling React, hey, please use these style sheets from A&T design. So I just can come into app file and just paste that URL. So basically we are importing the styles from A&T design. Without this, basically, you will need to create all the styles from scratch, which I can tell you that sometimes is a little bit pain, especially if you are in a rush. Nice. Okay. As you can see, after we imported Garuda styles, we are able to see correctly our website. So we see the menu, we see the content, and we see the sidebar. Nice. Now let's create the menu. So now we're gonna focus in on this slide right here, the menu. As you can see, it's just a bunch of icons, right? So not a big deal. I'm just gonna create a new component. So this is the first time that I'm introducing you a React component. But basically, you just write components in two ways. So either like this, or you can do the following, which is, oops. And here you can add blah, blah, blah. You can add whatever, right? So in my case, since I don't want to wrap anything here, I'm just going to use the first approach. Awesome. So once I have this, I just need to declare my component. Oops, sorry. And as one of your colleagues asked me before, and it's not really relevant for the hackathon itself, like if you can learn about it, is great. But it's not a big deal, is that what we are declaring here is a functional component. Another syntax for writing this functional component could be like this. So you declare a class, which is a menu, and then you say that this class extends from React dot a pure component or component, and then you will have the following syntax, right? So this and this is the same, guys. So you can use either this or this approach. In my opinion, most of the times, I sometimes use functional components, but most of the times I go with the first approach because I think it's simpler and it's cleaner. Let's save this part. Now, instead of seeing menu there, we see a hola, which is great. Now let's add our menu there. So basically, what we can have here is as well following the same approach of row and columns as well. So here I can say homepage, search, messages, and profile. And if I save this, you will see that everything is there, but it's looking horrible, right? Like everything sticks together. So in order to fix so, we need to play again with the dimensions of the columns and how much width the column will occupy. So in our case, if you remember from what I told you before, anytime that you write a column, you can specify a number from 0, which means the column will not appear, up to 24, which is basically what A&T design specifies, right? So it's purely depend on the UI library that you use, and there are some libraries that don't have these concepts as well. So in this case, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that every single item will be 24. Nice. So as you can see, since they occupy the full width, you will have one icon next to each other. Awesome. Now you will tell me, Jorge, I want to have some icons in my website. What can I do? Well, super simple. You just simply need to go to A&T, search for icon, and here you will have a lot of icons that you can start using in your application. In my case, I'm going to use the home button. And by the way, you can use different type of styles. So it can be an outline, a field, or a two-tone sort of a button. In my case, I'm going to use outline just because. Okay. And once you save this, we will have a problem, which is, well, home outline is not defined. Why? Well, because you need to import that from A&T design. So as you can see, this is the path for icons in A&T design, which is ANT/design/ -/ So we just simply need to go ahead into your file and say, I want to import a home outline from ANT design icon. Let's refresh. Awesome. And we can see there is a beautiful home icon. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and copy a couple of times the icon, so we don't need to waste more time on that. So it will be search outline, and we need to import that as well on top. And then what else do we have here? The messages. So mail. And then we could have the profile. So avatar or profile user. There we go. And we just paste that there. So the last thing that I want to do in this exercise, it's just like creating a very, as you can see, we have the icons right there. I just want to create a very basic tweet. So the form of the tweet is going to look like that. And in order to do so, I'm just going to go ahead and create a tweet component. So it's going to be tweet up. And a tweet will have a couple of properties. So it will have an avatar, which is going to be an image. It will have a user, which is going to be Jorge. Nickname, which is going to be JG Ferreiro. And we'll have a text, which is, I love you all. Thanks for bringing me over Garuda Hacks. Success. Okay. So once I define this, if I refresh, you will see that there is a problem, which is, hey, tweet is not defined. So we need to define the component right away. So I'm just going to go ahead and define a tweet component. And you may wonder like, oh, so what is this? Basically, this is like passing properties, passing data into the tweet component. This is what we call props. So I just simply need to use the same naming as we use below. And I'm just going to say return null because I just want to return empty. So once we have that, you see that there is nothing there. But let's create a new tweet design. So as you can see, again, we can use the raw. And as you can see, guys, literally you can accomplish every single design using the same approach about columns and rows. Literally, guys. So for this design, basically we have two columns. So we have the avatar and the content of the tweet. So this column will be a 4, and this column will be 20. And as you can see, we need to sum a 24. Nice. Inside here, we're just gonna say, okay, so we have image source avatar, and inside the right column, which is this part, we're just gonna simply have a couple of things, such as what is the user that sends the tweet. So we can have here the user. And as you can see, we are using JSX. And, for those of you who are not familiarized, JSX is very similar to HTML, but has its own syntax for certain things. And here, the way you use these variables into your code, into your component, is like this. You just simply put these brackets, curly braces, and you just use that variables from above. Nice. So we have just created this very simple tweet component. I actually need an image. So I'm just going to go to my Twitter, and I'm just going to copy my image from here. By the way, follow me, JG Ferreiro, follow me. Let's go here and say the image is going to be this one, the avatar. If I refresh, I just need to fix the CSS, but it's going to be great. So from this point, guys, really what you need to do is just like add a couple of more styles and you're ready to go. And in this case, I normally use CSS in JavaScript through Emotion, but really you can use inline CSS, such as the one that I'm writing here. So you could have a border, you can have a border radius, you can have a padding, you can have really whatever you want. And if you have questions to this, later on, reach out to me over Slack, JG Ferreiro, and I will answer all your questions. And here, I'm just gonna say that I want the avatar to be fully rounded. And yes, I mean, it's not looking amazing, but it's something. Let me close this part. So in order to finish this presentation, well, just let me show you something real quick, which is the gutter. And the gutter is basically a way of specifying margins through your components super easily. So I can specify 16 by 16, or I can say 30 by 30. And as you can see from this part, the margin gets applied automatically. In my case, I'm just going to say 16 by 16. Nice, guys. So the last piece of my presentations, we have 4 more minutes. And what I wanted to show you is actually how can you make this application go into production? Like, how can you share this application with your friends and, access that application? So it's very simple. And I'm just going to go ahead and I will go to my GitHub page. And I'm going to create a new GitHub repository, and I'm just going to call it Garuda. Follow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome to the family. Okay. So Garuda, this is an amazing a project for Garuda Hacks. Just kidding. A starting guide. And I'm just initialized with a README, and I'm with a git ignore of Node.js. And we just create the repo. Once we have that created, we're just going to go ahead and copy this URL from here and come into your local machine. And we will actually say, if you're not familiarized with Git, I cannot explain you in this presentation. But if you have questions, please reach out to me on DMs. But basically here we are going to call initial application skeleton. So I'm committing the changes. And what I'm going to do is saying git add remote, git remote at, come on, git remote, okay, at origin. Yeah, I forgot the, okay, awesome. Nice. And once I have that, I can actually git push. So my changes, okay, we have a conflict here, so I need to git pull first. And now I can git push. No problem. Don't ever do git push, but I'm just doing this because it's a presentation. Awesome. And once you have that ready, and if I refresh, you will see that we have now the changes on Git. Now, in order to make this go into production, you just simply need to go to this slide about deploying to production, copy this, paste it in your browser, and say, I want to import from Git repository. The repo URL is going to be this one. So I just copy that URL. I click continue. Garuda. I specify that the framework is Next.js. As you can see, you can specify other frameworks as well. And you just click on deploy. And literally, guys, after a couple of minutes, do you use a custom terminal program? Yes, I do. And write me a DM and I will send you the, my CSH. I will send you my configuration if you are interested in, as well as all my all the add-ons that I use on VS Code. So I'm just pushing that into Next.js, and after a couple of seconds, I will see the application live running, and everybody will be able to access to that, which is exciting. And as you can see, it was very, very simple. So guys, we are at the end of my presentation, and I just want to say thanks so much to the Garuda organizers for bringing me over here. It's very exciting, and we are doing this through remote, but I'm sure that once we can get together, all of us, it will be fun to do a physical or in-person Garuda Hacks. If you have any questions, as I said, you have here my Slack. Well, The source code will be on Ferreiro/Garuda, so you will be able to access to that. And this is my, you just search for me on the Garuda Hack Slack, and we can jump over a call. I can write you DM messages, so feel free to reach out with any questions. And as you can see here, just to close the presentation, if I click on visit, hey! If you go to garuda.borsel.app, we will see the very small product or project that we did today. So I hope it helped. Last question that I will answer real quick is, can I use Next.js fully as a REST API? Yes, you can. Like, I have not tried that out yet. But if you go to Next.js API, you can actually specify business logics and use, if I'm correctly, API routes. You can specify Next.js custom APIs. And if you have questions or you want to use that, reach out to me on DMs and we will do a pair session and we can work over that. So thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I hope it was fun. Live coding. Keep it up, guys. Best of luck.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jorge, for the very interactive and very effective presentation with the JS frameworks. Yeah, so feel free to follow Jorge on his multiple social media platforms. Yeah, right there. So yeah, so for our next talk, we're actually going to switch
Thanks,
things up
man.
a little bit. So for our next talk, we're gonna switch things up a little bit. Well, I just sent you the link on Google Meet. So that's what we'll be ending the stream and we'll be moving to Google Meet in the link that I just sent in. Thank you.